Hi, sorry, just was a little funky on the connection there. Hope you're all doing good. Just wanted to sort of take a break here at lunch and talk about the first ministers meeting that's happening currently. So, and I guess that sort of sums up the state of the union, the state of Canada, so to speak. So, anyways, we had to actually push to even get energy on the agenda. This despite the fact that even Justin has acknowledged this is a huge crisis. And everybody with a brain in their head thinks that it should be front and center when our ministers, that is the people who are in charge of each province, so to speak, such as Minister Notley, meet together, or premiers, sorry, my goodness, it's Friday, almost time to go home. Um, so yeah, they had to push to even get energy on the agenda. They wanted to talk about interprovincial trade barriers, sort of stepping around the fact that there are de facto interprovincial trade barriers that keep our energy from getting across the country, whether it's east to Quebec and New Brunswick or west to the coast across BC. So it's sort of funny. I'm just sort of taking a survey of the different provinces at this meeting. So BC, we know, is against oil. They think that you can run an economy on good intentions and gray money that's essentially laundered through China, from China, into their real estate industry. That's really what's going on with their economy. There's more vacant office space in downtown Calgary than there is office space in all of Vancouver. Just to put some perspective on what's really going on there in terms of an actual functioning economy. And then there's also Quebec. So Quebec is against oil. They're against Energy East. Funny though, they're not against Alberta oil money, which gets shoveled over there in the billions every single year via transfer payments, equalization. They're not against that. They're okay with oil money as long as they didn't have to earn it. They're also fine with Saudi oil. Funny that. They'd rather give money to Saudi Arabia, where you can get your head chopped off for any number of crimes, where it's a crime to commit acts that are certainly non-criminalized in Canada now, that are essentially, how do I put this? Essentially being an LGBTQ person in Saudi Arabia and having even the slightest inkling of coming out of the closet is essentially going to be illegal, right? And punishable severely. So they'd rather support those guys who are waging war in Yemen, who chop off the heads of criminals with a huge sword, than Alberta. So there you go, tells you a lot right there. And they're also fine with dumping sewage. They're not okay with oil, but they're okay with dumping raw sewage right into their wonderful St. Lawrence River. So that really tells you a lot about those guys. They have a real double standard. And guess what? People in Alberta are aware of this and they're not happy about it at the moment. Then we have New Brunswick, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Alberta. We want pipe. We want jobs. We want a fair price for Canadian oil so that we can actually have an economy, so we can pay our public servants, so we can build things, whether it's pipelines, whether it's actually companies going out and doing good things in Canada, innovating, or putting money into our provincial coffers so we can build highways, hospitals, all those good things. It's hard to do when you don't have any money and you're borrowing and you got to pay interest on your borrowing. I'd rather just sell oil for a decent price through good pipelines and make money that way. That's as we've always done, frankly. Man, I don't even know when they struck. There's natural gas in Medicine Hat, I think, in the late 19th century. Could be wrong. When Kipling came there, right? Medicine Hat, this town with all hell for a basement because of the natural gas. Long time. Turner Valley was certainly booming in the 30s in southern Alberta. Leduc number one. That was, I think, 1948. My grandfather was actually on a rig nearby at the time of that discovery. He was an engineer with Imperial. Young engineer at the time. Great, wonderful, fun times to be around the industry. They were hitting oil, hitting these little reefs, and just beautiful, bringing on beautiful flowing wells. Yeah, wonderful times. Anyways, So, and our buddy from Ontario, Rob Ford, was even willing to walk out of the meeting, given regarding the carbon tax, which of course is one of these things where we got to pay, but we don't get anything for it. In terms of, I mean, we instituted one in Alberta on the basis that we assumed a pipeline would be forthcoming, but we never got that. All we got was continued resistance, despite doing our best to help with the environment and play the game with Trudeau's government and their carbon tax. So we tried to play nice and we got beat down. And the feds are here to talk. So, but they tipped their hand. So this week in the Saskatchewan Court of Appeal, they're getting ready to hear carbon tax arguments, and they're hearing from potential interveners. And so the federal government is opposed to the UCP. That's a political party in Alberta that's likely to form the next government. Has I think somewhere in the area of 120,000 members. So they're opposed to them. They're opposed to another business group, I think, Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses. But they're fine with who intervening? Yes, they're fine with the Suzuki Foundation intervening. Don't know where their money comes from. They are an irrational group, from what I've seen. I don't see them as being a bona fide participant in these sorts of discussions, frankly. But the federal government wants them to be there. It's an activist group. Let's just leave it at that. And so they've tipped their hand. That's the side the feds have taken. They're on the side of Suzuki. They're not on the side of the average Albertan who's a UCP member. And as if they needed to make that more abundantly clear, they did. So thank you very much, guys. You really tipped your hand. We know exactly where you're coming from. And so when you step back on this and sort of survey where we're going, where we're at right now, and you look around and you see Alberta's economy is wilting. We're desperate for some pipelines to get our oil out. We recently, curtailment has been proposed by the government, and I think it's coming into effect January 1, which means we're actually cutting down via law, via government process on the amount of oil that we are producing. The market's already taken some off the table, and we're going to force a cut, which is a very, very extreme remedy, but these are pretty extreme times. So what's the net effect of this, of watching Quebec and BC oppose Alberta's attempts to actually flourish and contribute to Confederation? And like, look at us in Alberta. We've been happy to help out Newfoundland. We've been happy to help out Nova Scotia, happy to help out Quebec over the years, because we thought we were part of a team that says everyone in Canada, every province has the right to flourish. We're not going to get in each other's way. We're going to respect that sometimes our interests are opposed and try and work that out reasonably. So we've lost that reasonableness. We've lost that spirit of cooperation across the country. We're literally pitted against each other, throwing up interprovincial trade barriers. And the net result is, I will tell you this right now, it brings me no joy. People in Alberta are talking about separation. Jason Kenney, just this week on Danielle Smith's show, said that if elected, they're going to bring a referendum on Section 36 of the 1982 Constitution. So that is equalization. That's pretty extreme. There's more extreme views out there. But for it to come to that even, so essentially Alberta walking from equalization. People should be listening to these alarm bells going off, okay? This is the mainstream idea, walking from equalization now, okay? And I would vote for it, frankly, because we get nothing for the money we put into this thing. We cooperate, and we aren't cooperated with. So what's the point? The answer is there is no point at the moment. And if that's not crystal clear already, it's going to become even more crystal clear with each day of inaction, not just inaction, but actual aggression towards Alberta from the federal government and from provinces like Quebec. So that's just going to come more and more clear. More and more clear. And more Albertans are waking up. I hear about this every day in the elevator. People say we should secede. You're starting to see it gain traction on Twitter. Like I said, Jason Kenney was talking about a referendum on equalization. Brett Wilson is saying that separation is getting to be a widespread phenomenon. The recent poll in National Post said about a quarter of Albertans think they'd be better off outside of Canada. Uh, Frankly, I think if this is a relatively new idea, if they thought about it a little longer, that number would be much higher. And it's going to get much higher as we keep getting jerked around by the people who we're supposed to be in a country with. Anyways, those are my thoughts for today. It's back to work, reading a little, doing my CPD on unjust dismissal, wrongful dismissal, sorry. Yeah, so going to do a little of that, do a little work, and head home. So I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great weekend if we don't talk before then. Thank you.